We're going to get started. As always, is on the record. And yeah, so I'll just quickly introduce our next speaker, Dr. Eyal Hulata, who was Israel's National Security Advisor for Prime Ministers Bennett and Lapid, and Chief of the National Security Council from July 2021 to January 2023. He served in national security roles in Israel for over 2 decades, including head of the Intelligence and Technology Division of the Mossad. Over the past year, Dr. Hulata has been a senior international fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington, and we're very glad to have him back physically here in Israel.
Thank you.
So just very briefly, if you can walk us through your thoughts on what's going on right now, and also reflecting on the fact that you've spent a lot of time of the war while you were in the heart of the lines then, in terms of what's relevant for us here in Israel, and whether you think what the current climate really is in Washington right now in terms of our situation here.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Talia. Good to be here again. So I'll make some brief comments, and then we can open up to questions, given the time that we have, and to address Talia's remarks and topics. Look, I'll say that I'm hopeful. I think that it's hard to know what's really going on. One of the, I think, encouraging things is that not a lot is coming out of the closed sessions in Sharm el-Sheikh. It's a good sign. You've been here long enough, you know that when everything is out there, it means that they're playing the public through you guys. And if you don't get information, it means that maybe something is cooking. So that is, sorry if I was a little bit offensive with that remark, but I think you know the drill.
We receive.
Yes, I know. Yeah. We just had an episode with an Israeli journalist who was receiving and whatever. In any case, I'm hopeful. The main reason is that after many months where President Trump was continuously saying that this is important to him, he was not putting all of his weight on it. And it seems like for a host of reasons, Shalom lach, is a reunion, עוד מעט חיבוקים. For a host of reasons, I think mainly the understanding that if things will continue to drag along, there could be damage to his legacy of the Abraham Accords. That was real and sincere. And another hint that is the main reason is the fact that Jared Kushner returned. As you all know, he was out, he didn't want to come back, had no intention to do this, no incentive to do this, and yet he is south of here in Sharm el-Sheikh. So I think these are the main reasons to be hopeful that there is a good chance that this time this will materialize, because President Trump puts all of his weight. It's hard for the other players to oppose it. And of course, there's a host of players that need to play along. You live here, so you follow our press. We put all of the emphasis on our leadership, because I think it's the role of our leadership to bring back the hostages and to restore security in the south. The fact that there is a brutal, monstrous enemy, Hamas, on the other side, does not relieve the responsibility from our government to do what's right for the citizens of Israel, which is to bring back all of the hostages. And Nira will speak after me from Gaza. She has the stories more personal than whatever I can say. But this is the fact. Of course, Israel needs to do our part. Hamas need to do their part, and the instrument of Turkey, I think, now that they've joined together with the Egyptians and the Qataris, maybe we have a setting that would allow this to succeed. In any case, we'll know soon. Today, tomorrow, in 2 days, either we start seeing hostages being released. I don't expect all of them to be released at the same time. Unfortunately, I wish we could. But in any case, once it starts, it will be more difficult, I think, to stop the carriages in this regard. As for the atmosphere in Washington, look, you know, there is no other way to put this. Israel is seriously losing the battle over public opinion in all of your countries. I think I can recognize some of you, and I know some of your countries of origin, but it's also true in the United States. Being an Israeli, and I dare say being Jewish in the United States right now is not as fun and comfortable as it was 2 years ago. And that is very, very disturbing on the long run. Of course, this cannot be, of course, a major factor on the immediate security concerns that Israel has. I just think that we have done so much to deal with the immediate Israeli concerns way, way long ago. And especially the last several months, I think we're mainly losing rather than gaining. And that is a very disturbing consequence of this endless war, and I hope it will end soon. The real problem is that it's mainly the younger generation across the political spectrum. It's not just the Democrats. Even the youngsters among the evangelicals do not understand what they're seeing on TikTok, and no one is giving them good answers. And this will be a long-lasting issue that future governments in Israel will need to deal with. Otherwise, on the long run, this will have strategic implications. This will not end just because the war ends. Of course, it's a necessary step. No other process can start unless the war ends. And the IDF withdraws from Gaza to the agreed perimeter, but this will be a long journey to restore what I think should be trivial, which is that we are indeed a democratic country. And as you live here, you know, because you stroll the streets of Tel Aviv and you see every other night people protesting against the government in a way that only in democratic countries one can do. And they have a strong belief in it. Unlike other countries, they hold the Israeli flag and they sing a tikva at the end, the national anthem. Not in all countries, the protesters wave the national flag and sing the national anthem and feel patriotic. In Israel, everyone feels patriotic. We need to do way better to express to the world who we are and what we stand for. And I'm sure we'll be able to do this. But first, the war needs to end. The hostages need to come back. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Hulata. Questions? You had your hand up first.
I would like to come back to the.
Just also reminding name and media outlet. Thank you.
Swiss newspaper.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for doing this. And I would like my first question going back to the negotiation because you mentioned Turkey and Qatar, and they're now towards the Qatari Prime Minister and Chief Intelligence, head of the Foreign Intelligence of Turkey, are coming to Sharm el-Sheikh. How significant is this in your opinion, and what might it change?
So what changed? Well, first of all, the Qataris were involved as mediators all along. The Turks are the new member. This reflects the
Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, you know, he was mediating himself, even though he didn't want everyone to know. But I think once the conversation between Netanyahu and him became so public, he does not need to hide anymore. And now everyone knows who is in charge in Qatar and what his responsibility is and what President Trump expects him. And what President Trump expects him is to convince Hamas to let go of all of the hostages and to create conditions for the end of the war. And that is the initial step. Nothing can happen unless the hostages are released. And I think that the Turks are in the same place. These are all very complicated countries, so it's hard to know what they really wanted. I'll be surprised if President Erdogan wanted this outing. I don't think he wanted to risk his position. He has done so well to keep himself distant from this war for 2 years, even though he's implicated for above his head, but he was very good at hiding. And I think now Trump reveals them all, puts them in line, and tells them very, very clearly, I expect you to do whatever it takes so that Hamas releases the hostages so that the war can end. His demand is not from Hamas. His demand is from Ankara and Doha and Cairo. And I hope that because he means business now and everyone understands this, maybe this will create better conditions for success.
Hannah.
I have two questions. First of all, regarding the big countries that are key players now in this situation, Turkey somehow a new player really in this situation. How dangerous do you think it might turn? Because now we need it apparently, right, in order to fulfill Trump's wishes. But we know it's the alternative Muslim Brothers
Yeah.
axis instead of the Shiite one
Yeah.
led by Iran. How dangerous that could be. And regarding, if I may, a second question regarding the hostages, we want them back home. But do you think there is a dilemma between that ultimate need and desire to have them back home and the need of Israel to guarantee certain security needs that could be lethal in the future if they are not maintained?
So to the first question, we are experiencing a growth in Turkish ambitions and influence over the region over the last, I will say several years, but specifically since Assad was toppled in Damascus. And Israel needs to be very, very cautious as to the future of that. Israel doesn't need new enemies. I don't want to declare Turkey as an adversary just yet, even though it is a threat. It's definitely not an ally. The flotilla that was just stopped last night, that could have ended way worse. And you all remember 2009. And we're always at the brink of something happening really, really badly with Turkey. But I'll say we have priorities. First, we need to end the war in Gaza. And if the Qataris cannot do this alone, and we need also the Turks, then let the Turks join. And in fact, going back to what I said before, there's something important and constructive in the fact that Trump is holding Erdogan accountable with relations to Hamas. We will need this in the future, when it is clear that it was Erdogan that was able to force whatever is left of Hamas to release the hostages, because Turkey will continue to play a role, and they are Islamic Brotherhood, and so are the Qataris. And there is a joint interest, I think, among the pragmatic countries in the region as a whole, the Gulf, and also Egypt and Jordan, to push back against this radical Islam crescent. It's not just the Iranians that are a shared risk, but we'll deal with this later. At the moment, we need to get them back. And to your questions about the security arrangements, look, my position is has been for a long while now that what will determine the real security for the citizens of Israel, but also the sense of the security of the citizens of Israel. And again, I will definitely not want to take what Nira has to say to you, and we haven't spoken about this. I hope we agree. What will determine the security of the citizens of Israel is the ability of the IDF and the security establishment to prevent Hamas from becoming an army again, because this is what they were. They were an army. They're now back to being a guerrilla terrorist organization, like they were for many, many years. Israel has, unfortunately, many terror organizations that we need to deal with. In Gaza, Hamas is not the only one. Islamic Jihad, Palestinian Islamic Jihad is still there. Ziad Nakhl is still alive. But it's not. But it doesn't. Yeah. But it's not only. I mean, in the West Bank, we have Hamas in numbers that are beyond what the general public understands, because the Iranians have done a lot to bolster Hamas activity in the West Bank. So we will unfortunately need to deal with terror organizations, I think, for many years to come. And in this regard, and it is personal because yesterday was 2 years to October 7. And what we experienced in October 7 is the worst day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. But Hamas is not the worst enemy Israel needs to face. Hezbollah today is still stronger than Hamas. And the risk that they pose to our communities in the north today is bigger than the residual threat that Hamas is posing to Nira's community and to her neighbors. Unfortunately, that is the case. So what will determine whether or not we can restore security is how good the IDF will be, how good the Shin Bet will be, how good Mossad will be, how good we will be to prevent smuggling of serious arms into Gaza. And if we cannot do this in Gaza, then how will we do this in Lebanon? And how will we do this in the West Bank? This is the challenge that we need to face. Israel has done very poorly over 20 years on this. A lot of it has to do with political considerations. We've not taken Hamas seriously. And in fact, we've helped them, as you know. I mean, we have other that have told you this more than me. This is the challenge. And I will say, because this is the challenge, it starts in the future after the war ends anyway. Our successes on the ground are significant enough We've damaged Hamas more than we've damaged any enemy in any of the wars ever. We've decapitated all of its leadership. We've taken out more than 30% of its warriors, maybe 50%. They have no more rockets. The only explosives they have are probably things that we left behind us or dropped that haven't exploded. And our presence there is not increasing security on a day-to-day basis. They will not surrender as a terror organizations. I say that sadly. I wish they would. But I don't think this is something to hope for or to wait for, especially when we have hostages that are dying.
We have time for one last question.
Why do you think Prime Minister has continued this war for 2 years? Is this for really release of hostages or his only for his survival, political survival? How do you see it?
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue with the facts. We had several opportunities to end the war before. I'm not among those who are saying that the deal we see now was exactly the deal that was on the table a year ago. That's not just not true. Not true. The weight that President Trump is putting now is not similar to the weight that President Biden put a year ago. But President Biden also wanted the war to end. We had many opportunities to end the war before, and the conditions were not sufficient enough for Netanyahu. That is to just state the facts. Unfortunately, I believe that the reasons for that were also because of Netanyahu's will to survive as a politician and for his government not to topple. And the demands from the extreme right-wing factions of the government elevated the bar so high that it was just impossible to reach a conclusion. And in fact, when this deal does materialize, and truly hope it does in a matter of days, Netanyahu will need to back down from many of the things he said to his base that he will stand for. That this will not end before Hamas is completely disarmed, and that the Strip will not be ruled by members of the Palestinian Authority, and of course not with Hamas involvement. I'm not sure that this is going to be the trajectory that we're leading to. And when he prioritized those needs, unfortunately, he did not put the hostages first. Had he put the hostages first, they and many of them might have been also already released before. But now it's the moment of truth. No more time. President Trump is demanding this. So when this ends, we will also see that Netanyahu needed to back down before. Could have he done it before? Yes. Yes. But that would have had political implications that unfortunately he was not willing to pay.
Dr. Hulata, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As always for your time. And I'm sorry to cut this short, but we're also welcoming our next speaker. And hopefully the next conversation will.
The next conversation is after.